everybody, this is sort of a sequel podcast because I'm here with writer, actor, producer, probably director too, right? By this point, Shawn Patrick Boyd. I've actually now, I think this is the third time I've had an official conversation with you. The
Yeah.
second time we spoke was the beginning of you launching your first graphic novel that was in 4 volumes called Winona Forever, sort of a childhood memory piece, and yet obviously not, because I'm pretty sure you never ran afoul of a mystical Vatican plot to destroy the world. But anyway, uh,
Yeah.
so pretty sure, right? I
That
mean,
is, I mean, unless I slept through it, which boy, yeah,
it was the 80s. We slept through a lot of things, quite
it,
honestly. And here we are, 4 volumes done. The first graphic novel by Shawn Patrick Boyd is finished and out there in the wild. So my question is, first, in this victory lap, how does it feel to have accomplished that?
oh my gosh, it feels awesome, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to kind of come back and complete the circle. So yeah, it feels pretty amazing. Again, being the first one I've ever done, there was a lot of naivete in it, which is of course great because right, if you knew everything, you might not do something. Um, so now I'm the wise elder, or at least compared to what I was when I first started it. And it feels amazing to have gotten this done. It was a 2 year process. Well, yeah, pretty much 3 years because I wrote it as a screenplay, then adapted it. But it was 2 years from the time that Elijah and I started working on it as a series, a graphic series.
Yeah. And you say the wise elder would go back to, if the wise elder had time travel abilities as well,
Yeah.
what would he tell younger Shawn Patrick Boyd to do differently?
It's a great question. I have thought a little bit about like what would I do differently, and I don't mean this in a arrogant way. I mean this in a grateful way that I did stumble into some things that I would do the same, and so I just like fumbled in and luckily came into some things that I would do the same. Two that I come to the top of my head are this: is one to break it up into parts. The reason that I broke it into 4 parts, because it is one story, is when I started to calculate how long it was going to take to illustrate the entire book, it was going to take 2 years. And I thought, I don't know that I have the patience to wait 2 full years, because if I'm telling people, what are you working on? And every time I'm like, oh, I'm still working on Winona Forever. Pretty soon you get sick of yourself saying it. So I just thought, it'll inspire me and keep me going and energize me if we break it into parts. Because then it's like, oh, we just released part one. We'll feel like something's happening. So that's the first one. Is I would do that again. I would break it up into parts. It makes it more manageable. The second reason I'd break it up into parts, and it seems the rest of the comic industry writ large knows this, is that it takes time for people to come to your story. So I think as a creator, it's easy to forget that you've written this thing, you have this vision, you've been sitting with it for a while. You forget that everyone else is there behind you. They're like, what is this thing? You tell them about it, and they're like, oh, okay. Is it a comic? And you're like, I did say it was a comic, but right, you start to, oh yeah, they're just catching up to where you are. So if you break it up into pieces and release it a little bit over time, you give other people a chance to catch up to it, and you give a chance for an audience to build around it. So I would do that again. And honestly, that was just blind stumbling, naive luck that I did that.
Well, it's a good point in terms of say one of the larger publishers may not have to have as much of a lead time, but you really stumped. It's issue by issue. You're building an audience, you're building I guess, a mailing list through Kickstarter, all those things. So you're there as the indie. Did the story change at all? That's the one thing I think too, when you break it up like that and you start seeing maybe how people respond, or as you see it the way Elijah drew it, which I forgot to pour a drink here. I'll pretend with a mug. It is, we are recording this on Elijah Henry's birthday. So, sir, cold coffee from this morning.
Yeah, I'll hold an empty
Yes.
imaginary glass.
Well, you're an actor. You've got those, those fast, fantastic space work.
I know,
So,
which a side note about that, it always bothers me in movies and TV when I can tell that they're not actually, they have nothing in their glass, because you can tell they're not actually drinking something, and it makes a difference. I'm like, put some water in there. We don't have to see it, but then you don't have to fake drinking something that we know you're not drinking.
all right. See, the conversations I have include acting tips. I mean, people pay attention. Shawn's got a lot. Uh, so, so it did. So, what changed, or what caused you to change where you thought it was going?
Yeah. So, so the story itself, as I changed it from screenplay to graphic, is I did see, like, look, things that are going to work in film don't necessarily work on the page. Just for instance, I had this introduction to one of the characters, Darby, and on screen it was like, oh, he's going to be like playing music and dancing to a song, and you know what I mean? There was something cute and funny about it and endearing, and you learn something about him. And then when his kid friends come in, he shuts the music off because he doesn't want them to know, right? So there's something about him being a little shy. Even his friends don't know certain things about him. Well, I just thought on the page of the graphic, is that interesting? And what are we going to do? Show him dancing in it just was like, this doesn't work. So I was like, I need a new introduction to the character. So that was like kind of an example of just, what I had, as I was adapting it. Things you need to think about are like screen versus flat on the page. But I'll say one thing that really adjusted over time was, as I grew more confident in the medium and had results to see,
Mhm.
I was like, oh, we could have done this better. I would maybe do this next time. And because we were doing it over time, next time could be the next issue. And I
Mhm.
could make a change on the fly to how we were depicting something. So the story itself, I felt like was working, and that part was good. The structure, the bones. But as we went along, I just thought visually how I was directing on the page got a little bit stronger, just from practice and also confidence working with Elijah. Um, he and I, like, you develop that rapport where you're like, look, we're both trying to do the best work here. So if I suggest something, it's not to say you're not doing this right or I can do it better. It's really like, hey, I had this idea of how we could lift the whole. And so I did start directing a little bit stronger on the page. And what I mean by that is, in the beginning, I would say there's 5 panels. In panel one, we see this. They said this person says this person says this person says this. What I then started to do as I went along was saying, oh, actually, this first panel cuts into the second panel, so they sort of bleed into one another. And then the next panel is all one, but it blends in with the first two. So I guess what I mean is a stronger point of view on the look of the page, as opposed to, I don't know, I'll let Elijah deal with that, and here's the dialogue.
And once because I think the discovery I made with Elijah is enjoying Winona Forever, but never having really encountered his art. I started following him on Instagram and seeing a very different style with a lot of the things that he's posting. Did that affect you as well? Like going, oh, Elijah can do more than maybe you thought when you started.
Well, I think it was actually sort of the reverse, for better or worse. Is I'll explain, is that when I first encountered his work, I did encounter the more macabre, the darker stuff that if you check out Eli Art Online, which is his Instagram handle, you'll see he posts a lot of really cool art, and he's so quick and so his imagination is endless. I don't know where he comes up with these characters,
Uh, you
but
know, I don't want to be a vulture here, but I want to collaborate with him on something more macabre because I've
they're
got stuff that way, and I'm just like, oh, geez, he is really good.
yeah,
I
yes,
mean, not that Winona Forever wasn't. It's just like,
no,
wow, there's a lot. a very different style. He's a very versatile artist.
No, that's absolutely true. And yeah, no, I recommend anybody collaborate with him. Um, so when I first encountered him, point being is that like I saw that more macabre, the dark, the twisted. I don't know why. I just thought, man, this guy is good. And there was this something I maybe saw something else, and I was like, I think he can do this other thing. And then we did do a quick trial of like, hey, here's who I am. Here's my script. Here are the characters. And he's like, let me do some sketches of the four main characters, and we tried it on for size, and it was like, yes, he can do what I need. But your point is a really good one, Derek. Is that I guess what we're both praising here on his birthday is the
Why
the
not? He's not here.
right. I mean, the diversity, his ability to do different styles is mind blowing, and I think so. That's what I meant about the reverse was true. Is I saw he could do this
Yeah.
darker thing, and somehow was like, I think he could do this other thing, and thankfully it was true, and he can do it all.
Yes. And now that it's all done, do we get
Yes.
one? Because you referred in an email this week as we were exchanging, you said you sold out your stock at a book fair. So is there going to be all four collected into one volume? Are you going to try that now?
Yeah, exactly. We're working on that right now. So I think we're just going to call it Winona Forever, the complete. We're calling it the complete collection or complete series, whatever it is. We're compiling it, yes, into one, so that you can get it as a complete graphic. It'll have it already has. We've already designed the cover. We've designed its interior cover pages. So there'll be a lot of unique aspects to it. So for those that have the individual issues, that's they're not null and void. In fact, they're extra because there's illustration in there on those interior pages that won't be in the compiled version. And then the same is true for the graphics. So trying to give them both a real reason for
Mm-hmm.
being. And so I'm super excited about that. And with the compilation, we're going to do I'll do some pages that talk about whatever it is I want to talk about the story process. Elijah's going to do some pages about the process of illustration. And then I'm planning on having some other illustrators do renditions of the characters. So
Oh,
I'll
terrific.
just, yeah, I want them to just do their own version of the character. So I know that it's kind of traditional to do alternate covers, but I just thought this might be a little bit more interesting, given that it's going to be black and white and gray, the interior, because we don't,
Mm-hmm.
pages were never in color. So I thought, how interesting will a black, white, gray alt cover be? And I thought, well, wait a minute, what if we do all characters? So point being, yeah, it's coming. I think the plan is to release it for Halloween 2023. So next Halloween, kind of perfect
Cool.
timing.
Cool. And are we going to, as you're piecing that together, will we get you back out on a convention circuit? Because I think, to me, that's the hardest thing. As we were again also talking about,
Yeah,
like, books kickstarted
yeah,
by even bigger companies, and
yeah,
part of that was because of the pandemic. Um, but an indie book from a first time creator
yeah.
is hard to break through. So conventions are it, right?
Yeah. Well, let me. I'll state this as what my experience has been, and also as to get a reflection back from you because you're so experienced in this industry. So, uh, so my experience has been this: is it's so I went to LA Comic Con and it was a great experience. But what my observation of it was is people aren't there for what I'm offering. They're there, like you could just see it. Everyone's dressed in cosplay from Marvel, DC, etc. And that's great. But you just see visually, this is what they're here for. They're here for the blockbusters and the stars and those types of things. And so in terms of like sales and getting my book in people's hands, that it wasn't that was pretty limited. And I didn't take it like I didn't
Right.
like feel discouraged. It was just
Yeah.
like, okay, let me see what I can learn from this. then what I did find is that if you go to the right venue where people are
Hmm.
looking for indies and for new things, then that's when it's like, oh well, of course, this is why they're here. Then it's like, oh great, this was easy. And that's what I found. I went to the Twin Cities Book Festival, and that's what people are there for. And I sold out of all the stuff.
I was gonna say, connect up with someone if you come back out to LA, because of course I'm always happy to go where you are if you're in LA, uh,
Awesome.
and support that. But the LA Times Festival of Books is exactly, if you can find like a vendor that you ally yourself with, because I don't know what it costs to get a
Yeah,
table on your own,
yeah,
but I saw like organizations gathering and consortiums of creators, and you
yep,
know I mean, to that end, like I just went to a convention called Son of Monster Palooza, not where you expect to find comics, but I know word's going to get out. If this guy shows up, bring comics, because he'll buy them, and it's easier if I go to a place where there's only three options,
yeah,
three
yep.
titles. I'm like, oh, I got to try all of them. I'll take
Yeah.
that shot.
No, it's true. And back to your thing about that, I guess that's another piece of wisdom that I, would try to transport to myself back, in the beginning is just really like be logical about like, and you don't know until sometimes you try, but be logical about where is the audience for this particular thing? Where are they going to be? Because if you try to put yourself in situations where it's like, oh, this isn't a logical home for this, you see those as the results, right? So anyway, that's something that I've learned. And like, yeah, if I find when I find the right venues, it's amazing, and people really embrace the book. So I mean, I feel really encouraged. I think now we've sold 1,300 copies, which feels pretty good for an indie title.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Was it harder than you thought as far as just getting it out there?
No, it was more fun than I thought, actually.
I love that. You know what? And I'm going to take that as the opportunity to say, we will continue talking, but I'm going to say thank you here, because this is a great. I can't top that. It was that's fantastic. So thank you, Shawn.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much. Thanks for watching. Please hit the subscribe button to make sure you don't miss out on any Fanboy Planet video content. And visit fanboyplanet.com for other features, reviews, interviews, previews, and of course, listening to the Fanboy Planet podcast. And remember, use your powers for good.